The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Alberta Canola Producers Commission, SAS Canola, and Manitoba Canola Growers.
Welcome to Real Agriculture's Canola School series. I'm Kara Oosterhuis. In this episode, I talked to Autumn Barnes, who's an agronomy specialist with the Canola Council of Canada. Autumn and I talk about the importance of taking preventative measures when it comes to clubroot in your canola crop, as well as how even though you may not be in a traditional clubroot zone, you may need to look out for that pathogen and be aware of what it could do to your canola crop.
This is a good time to be checking if you have any clubroot susceptible weeds that are pretty big. Then you could be pulling them out and checking the roots. Generally, those clubroot spores don't start becoming really active until about 15 degrees Celsius in the soil. And so that's when they're going to start to become active and moving and infecting the root hairs of susceptible plants. So when we talk about clubroot, I really like to think about keeping our spores low and keeping them local. Generally speaking, when we find clubroot, and I say when because it's not a matter of if we will find it, we want to keep our spore loads low. So if you have a longer crop rotation, that's a really good way to set yourself up for maintaining low spore loads. But a wide crop rotation of canola needs to include good weed control in off years. And so on our irrigated fields where we have seed production, lots of those fields have a mandatory 4 or 5 year rotation. So that's a really great step. Weed control is a priority on those fields. That's a great step. But those fields also have a lot of traffic in and out of them, and their soil moisture is a little bit higher. So clubroot really likes moisture and it likes warm weather. So keeping spore loads low, the best thing we can do is find it early. Because when clubroot infects a plant, it produces rapidly a whole bunch more spores, right? So we want to keep our spore loads low by finding it very early, finding it when our clubs are small, which means there's not a lot of spores there to infect those roots, and then widening our rotation, controlling our weeds. Hopefully we're already using resistant varieties so that when it does come, it takes a lot longer for those spores to really establish themselves. So keeping it low, and then also keeping them local, which is a bit of a harder thing to do. That has a lot to do with sanitation. And sanitation is a really difficult one because it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. And sometimes it feels like it might not be paying off initially, but it really can, you know. If you have equipment coming in from other parts of or unknown areas or known clubroot areas, it's really important that soil is cleaned off before it gets to your farm because clubroot is carried where soil goes. Myself and other Canola Council agronomists, when we're in the field, you'll see us wearing booties or wearing sanitized footwear. So something that agronomists or crop inspectors or, any reporters, anybody entering a field, having sanitized footwear is really important. If you're driving a quad, doing your best to clean it between fields. And then when it comes to seeding implements, like we tend to find clubroot we've in the past tended to find clubroot around field entrances because it will come in through tillage equipment or through seeders. So often somebody will come in through an approach with the seeder, turn right, drop down, and all the dirt from their last field drops onto the ground. So sanitation is a really important piece. And in the past, we've talked about pressure washing and sanitizing and bleaching and things like that. And those are really important. But what I'm really hoping people in my territory and the other kind of non-traditional clubroot areas will do is to do something. Like, you don't necessarily have to spend 6 hours cleaning your drill between fields, but at the very least, knock off all the dirt before you switch fields. Have your custom guys who are coming on your fields be clean. Ask anybody who's entering your farm to be clean. If you've got somebody working on, windmills or rigs, things like that, if there's a lot of traffic coming through, ask people to be clean. And really, it's the landowner's responsibility to do that. So that's another good point when we're thinking about scouting for clubroot is where to look for it. And so, as I mentioned, a lot of fields clubroot will be found near the field entrances. But if the field entrance isn't a suitable place for clubroot to multiply, then it won't. It'll just get dragged through the field by seeding and different operations. And then when it finds a place it likes that's maybe a little bit wetter, has a little bit of a lower pH, then that's where it's really going to multiply and start start creating more of a problem. I know this year it's a little bit too late as far as decision making goes for canola, and the varieties that people are using, but certainly when we're going to different crop tours this summer and looking at which varieties to grow next year, canola growers should really be thinking about using resistant varieties across the board on their farm. And that doesn't mean use the resistant variety and have whatever rotation you want and never look at it. It means use a resistant variety in a responsible rotation and check it frequently, because that's when you're going to be able to find that clubroot nice and early when you've got nice small galls. You ideally don't wait until you find a big dead patch. That means that your spore loads are probably astronomical. You want to find, tiny little root growths. That's excellent. That's the best time to find it, because that means you can, rotate longer. You can use, if you haven't used resistant varieties yet, use those resistant varieties, but really focus on finding it early and using resistant varieties, having a good crop rotation, and really just trying to prevent those spores from coming to your farm in the first place.
Thanks for watching this episode of RealAgriculture.com's Canola School. If you want to know more about canola agronomy, be sure to check out www.canolaschool.com for more videos.